something is coming. You can feel it, can't you? We are creeping toward the edge. And there will be a reckoning. That is why we started the project. Because we know what happens next. They will come. They will try to take from us. Take our guns. Take our freedom. Take our faith. We will not let them.
Sheriff, come on.
Hold on.
We will not let their greed, or their immorality, or their depravity hurt us anymore.
So as of today, the 27th of March 2018, Far Cry 5 is out, but thanks to a review code from Ubisoft, I've been able to get stuck in a few days early. So I thought I'd take advantage of that. Since a lot of people might be unsure as to whether or not Far Cry 5 is worth the money, why not make a video giving my thoughts on the game to possibly help convince you whether or not it's worth it. As a casual disclaimer though, this is not a review, just my thoughts on the game in general. I've played about 10 hours in total, and I'm only just over a third of the way through the main story. I also haven't properly gotten hands on with the arcade yet, but to me multiplayer and arcade stuff tends to take a back seat. So in other words, I don't really care, because I just don't care. Those kinds of things don't really appeal to me anyway. But they are there, so that's something to definitely take a look at if you get the game. But anyway, this introduction has been long-winded enough, let's get into why you're actually here. Going in, I was a tad worried, expecting the game to play out in a similar way to how Far Cry 4 and in turn Far Cry 3 did. And to a certain extent, the game has its familiarity, but in fairness, it's not as similar as I expected it to be. The story is interesting and the main antagonist doesn't feel like a bootleg Vars, so the story definitely feels unique within the franchise and that's important, but at the same time it still plays in a very similar way. A big difference that I noticed is that the gameplay itself feels a little bit lighter, especially around the gunfight mechanics. The shooting in Far Cry 5 is actually somewhat satisfying, which I would definitely chalk down to that lighter feel. The guns don't feel to have so much weight to them, they feel more accurate and the recoil is less punishing, which was a big issue in Far Cry 3 and 4 as most of your bullets would probably wind up finding the sky sooner than it would find your target. And when it comes to features like this, I know it's quite realistic to have punishing recoil and shit accuracy and all that stuff, but realism in gaming is a great concept, but in practice it can be very annoying. Far Cry 5 really doesn't have this problem. It is very similar, but I just don't find myself crying internally every time I'm resorted to a gunfight. And considering how often you'll find yourself being shot at and being forced to return fire, the game would have pushed less committed players to trading it in pretty quickly had the gunplay been the exact same as Far Cry 4 and 3. But that lighter feeling is so small, but it makes a huge difference. But this light gameplay feel isn't just exclusive to the shooting. To me it seems pretty thorough, in everything but the driving, but you know what, the driving wasn't a problem before, so it's all good. I won't however sit here and say that Far Cry 5 has completely changed up the Far Cry formula though, because it really is very similar. It's just not as similar as I expected, for very minor reasons that have had a massive impact. Now the story is a big seller for any game with a narrative core. I won't spoil anything because this is more of a buying guide as opposed to an actual review, but what I can say is that the story has compelled me thus far. I know that I'm only a third of the way through, but in that third that I've played, I've been thoroughly invested in the story's contents. The main questline isn't exactly railroaded either. There are plenty of main quests you can do at your own pace, though when you get to certain points, you'll be forced into a certain quest here and there, which is fine. Although if there's one thing that I've noticed about these particular quests, it's that they are somewhat predictable initially speaking. They don't typically stay that way, but you do know when they're coming. As you go through the main story, you'll find yourself meeting many characters, some of which become reoccurring, meaning that they show up multiple times. Some of these characters are forgettable, I will admit, and others aren't. My personal favourite character is of course Boomer, a dog companion that you can get very early on in the game. He's very efficient in firefights, attacking enemies and sometimes disarming them and bringing their guns to you. He's also capable of killing enemies and reviving you if you get downed. You can also pet him, and in those brief moments where you stare into his eyes, you can tell that he's having the time of his fucking life. If I'm being honest, they released a trailer for this little guy, and it was the only thing that really made me interested in the game. Anyway, outside the main story, the game features side quests. Most of these side quests consist of doing small things for people. A lot of the time they feel a bit brief. They can sometimes be one objective for a character who really doesn't have any personality at all and have no dialogue in them. But sometimes you'll stumble upon a more interesting quest that has a bit more meat to it. And so far, these more interesting side quests are proving to be quite fun and unique. Just as an example, I had a quest that was essentially a boss fight with a white moose. The moose had red eyes, and I had to fight this, a wolf, a bear, on low ammo, and avoid being shot at by a plane. So it kind of got a bit more chaotic than it was supposed to, but it was still fun. As for the open world, I'd say it's a decent size. I've played about 10 hours and I've barely left one of the 3 major regions. And considering how much there is in one region, I'd say that the open world as a whole has plenty to offer overall, meaning that there's plenty of hours worth of side content to be getting on with. Might I add, there's still plenty of content to be done in the region that I've played in. Furthermore, Hope County, Montana as a setting is a pretty nice looking place. It's nothing particularly breathtaking from what I've seen, but it's a rather casual backdrop for a Far Cry game. And the setting kind of feels right for the franchise as well, so it's not a bad setting at all. Moving on, hunting and crafting were major elements in Far Cry 3 and 4, but in 5 it really doesn't matter all that much. You hunt more for income than anything else, and you don't really have to do much of that if you don't want to. As for the crafting, there is a crafting wheel accessed through the weapon wheel, but in my 10 hours of playing, I haven't resorted to using it once, and only discovered its existence in the 8th or 9th hour. I'm not all that fussed by this. I mean, obviously I liked the hunting, and I like the idea of crafting with the spoils of the hunt, but I'm not all that fussed, but take it as you will. Hunting is still present, so if you want to go ahead and kill some bears, be my guest. Something that's really important about any open world game, I find, is its soundtrack. The game's in-game soundtrack is pretty damn good. I'm really liking the ambience and the combat music. It really creates the atmosphere appropriate for the game's setting, so to me, the soundtrack gets an easy pass. And now, since I play PC, it's time to talk optimization. Now, the game does run pretty fine on my Nvidia GTX 1060 6GB of memory graphics card to be specific, albeit with the occasional blip when I'm playing on my own, and when I'm streaming, I'm subjected to lag spikes frequently, which can kind of create a painful experience, though I can't really diagnose whether these lag issues are mine or the game's. Other than this though, I've been running the game on high settings and mostly have been experiencing 60 plus frames per second, though when I went to toggle the 60 frame cap, it didn't seem to bloody work, and I still see the frame counter skyrocket as high as 80 frames per second. Which shouldn't be happening when you've capped it to 60, so I want to know why that's not working. As for glitches, I have experienced a fair few. They will be more or less game breaking to less patient players, such as being stuck in a car turret in an essential story mission waiting for the driver to show up for 5 minutes, not being able to leave the turret or back out of the mission, and reloading the checkpoint does nothing because you're already at it. That's probably the worst that I've experienced. Doesn't help that it was a difficult bit when the driver actually showed up though. So I wound up doing it several times over. Each time it was glitched and the driver showed up pretty late. I would also like to criticise that certain followers can be dumb fucks, often getting in the way of your vehicle as you drive off because for some reason they refuse to get in, so you wind up running them over. Then they need reviving, so you revive them, they'll just rinse repeat, and it can get really annoying. Sometimes you won't even notice that you've run over your companion until it tells you that they died on the road back 2,000 meters away and that they'll be unavailable for the next 15 minutes. Honestly, Boomer, I love you, but you're fucking special. Also, I'd like to bring into question, why on earth is there a diabetic bear called Cheeseburger? Moving on, microtransactions are also present in the game in a very similar fashion to Assassin's Creed Origins. Instead of Helix credits, they're called silver bars, and you basically get the same amount of silver bars as Helix credits for the prices that you pay. There's not really much to use these microtransactions on though at this point, as everything that you can buy with them so far is obtainable in-game with in-game currency. I do, however, expect this to change when Far Cry 5 inevitably gets overpriced gear packs as well, but for now they're not really forcing it down your throats, and it's there for people who want to use them. but I, in my 10 hours of playing, haven't even been tempted to do so, and I don't even remember seeing any prompts to their existence, besides from maybe like an introductory one. So all in all, in my 10 hours of playing, I've experienced nothing that has made me remotely dislike the game. I'm invested in the story, characters are a little hit and miss, I'll admit, as are some of the side quests, but as an overall experience, I'm enjoying it. It's nothing groundbreaking, and it still bears a lot of similarities to Far Cry 4 and through Far Cry 4, Far Cry 3, but it's a lot more defined from Far Cry 3 than Far Cry 4 was, so in that respect, Far Cry 5 is familiar but not the exact same again, if you know what I mean. So, do I recommend this game? Yeah, it's not a bad experience, in fact it's pretty good. Like I said, it's not amazing in the sense that it's given me a new love for the franchise, but it's to a more than agreeable standard, and that's all that I can ask for at this point. I won't even attempt to give the game a rating because like I said, this is more of a buying guide as opposed to a review. But what I can say is that this game definitely wouldn't be a waste of money if you liked previous Far Cry installments. So there you have it. I do hope that this video was helpful. You'll have to let me know what you think down in the comment section. Also, while you're at it, let me know what you think about the game if you already have it, because it will be helpful to people who are wondering whether or not they should get this game, and it's always better to rely on several opinions than just one. But anyway, thank you all for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed, or at least gathered something intelligent from it. Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share. Do let me know what you think down in the comment section. Was this helpful? Was it not? What do you think about the game if you have it, etc, etc. All that stuff is helpful, and I'll see you all very soon with another video at some point.